I never thought I'd be standing here, watching my father-in-law's face turn from smug satisfaction to horror. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Emily Parker, and I'm the 32-year-old CEO of Sterling Technologies. Not that my in-laws knew this. They just thought I was their son's wife who worked some office job. I met my husband, James Sullivan, 5 years ago at a coffee shop. He was charming, kind, and seemed different from the usual corporate types I dealt with. When he told me his family owned a medium-sized manufacturing company, Sullivan Manufacturing, I decided to keep my own position quiet. I wanted someone to love me for who I was, not what I owned. The early days of our marriage were wonderful. James was supportive and loving, though he worked long hours at his family's company. I understood. I did the same, just more discreetly. I had my assistant handle most in-person meetings with Sullivan Manufacturing, which had been one of our suppliers for years, before I even met James. Everything changed 3 months ago when James's sister, Diana, returned from abroad. "Jimmy, you can't be serious," she said during our first family dinner together. "Your wife doesn't even help with the family business. What kind of Sullivan wife is she?" I sat there, fork suspended midair. James shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Diana, Emily has her own career," he muttered. "Oh, please." Diana rolled her eyes. "Some entry-level office job? Our family has standards, Jimmy." I caught my mother-in-law, Margaret, nodding in agreement. My father-in-law, Richard, didn't even look up from his plate. That dinner was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Diana launched a full campaign to get me involved in Sullivan Manufacturing, not as an executive or manager, mind you, but as an assistant. "Every Sullivan spouse works for the company," she would say. "It's tradition." Finally, after weeks of pressure, I agreed to help out part-time in their accounting department. I figured it might actually be useful to see how our supplier operated from the inside. That's when things got interesting. I discovered irregularities in their books, nothing illegal, but definitely inefficient. Their pricing structures were outdated, their inventory management was chaotic, and their technology was at least a decade behind. I tried making suggestions, carefully and respectfully. "Mr. Sullivan," I said during a family meeting, "if we updated the inventory management system—" "We," Richard interrupted, eyebrows raised. "There is no we, Emily. You're just here because of James." Diana snickered. "At least she's trying, Daddy. Even if she has no idea what she's talking about." I looked at James, hoping he'd defend me. He stared at his shoes. The final straw came yesterday. I'd prepared a detailed presentation about how Sullivan Manufacturing could save millions by modernizing their systems. I'd worked late every night for a week, using my actual business experience while pretending to be a novice. "This is ridiculous," Richard exploded halfway through my presentation. "Who do you think you are? Some business expert? I'm just trying to help." "Help? You're an outsider who married into money and now thinks she can tell us how to run our century-old business." Diana stood up, smirking. "Daddy's right. You've overstepped, Emily. Way overstepped. You're fired," Richard yelled, face red. "We don't want outsiders in our family business." Everyone laughed. Even James managed a weak chuckle. I gathered my things quietly and left. Nobody noticed the small smile on my face as I walked out. That evening, James came home late. "Emily, I'm sorry about today, but you have to understand, it's a family business." I looked at my husband of 3 years and felt nothing but disappointment. "Yes, James, I understand perfectly. Maybe you could apologize to Dad. Tell him you got carried away." I walked to our home office and pulled out a folder I'd kept hidden for years. "James, do you know who Sterling Technologies is?" He frowned. "Of course. They're our biggest client. Almost 60% of our business comes from them." "Why?" I pulled out my company ID and CEO badge. "Because tomorrow, I have a meeting with Sullivan Manufacturing's CEO." The color drained from his face. "Emily, what are you saying?" "Get some sleep, James. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." Part 2. The next morning, I arrived at Sullivan Manufacturing at exactly 9 a.m., dressed in my best business suit. The security guard, who'd watched me get humiliated and fired yesterday, did a double take when I flashed my Sterling Technologies CEO badge. "Miss Parker." I didn't know." "It's fine, Tom. I have a meeting with Mr. Sullivan." Walking through those familiar corridors felt different now. Employees who'd snickered at me yesterday suddenly straightened their backs and nodded respectfully. Amazing what a little badge could do. I reached Richard's office, where his secretary, Linda, was typing away. "Emily, you can't go in there," Mr. Sullivan said. I handed her my business card. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, you're the Emily Parker? From Sterling Technologies?" "Yes, and I believe Mr. Sullivan is expecting Sterling's CEO this morning." Linda scrambled to announce me. Through the door, I heard Richard's muffled voice. "Send them in." I walked into the office to find Richard, Diana, and James all waiting. They must have planned to gang up on Sterling's CEO, not knowing it was me. Their faces were priceless. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Shall we discuss business?" Richard's face went from red to white to red again. Diana's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But James, my husband, just sat there, looking like his whole world had collapsed. This is some kind of joke," Diana finally managed. "No joke." I sat down and opened my laptop. Sterling Technologies has been Sullivan Manufacturing's biggest client for the past decade. We currently account for 60% of your annual revenue through our contracts. Contracts that, coincidentally, are up for renewal next month. Richard gripped his desk. You've been spying on us." "Actually, no. Everything I know about Sullivan Manufacturing comes from legitimate business interactions, including yesterday's presentation, which, by the way, could have saved you roughly $3.2 million annually." "You can't do this," Diana hissed. "Jimmy, tell her she can't do this." James finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't you tell me?" I turned to my husband. "Would it have made a difference? Would you have stood up for me yesterday if you'd known who I really was?" His silence was answer enough. "Now," I continued, "let's discuss those contracts. Sterling Technologies has been reviewing all our supplier relationships. Given yesterday's incident, I have serious concerns about continuing our partnership with Sullivan Manufacturing. You destroy this company over a family squabble," Richard demanded. "Family?" I raised an eyebrow. I thought I was an outsider who needed to be fired. Diana jumped up. "I'm calling our lawyers." "Please do," I replied. "I'm sure they'd love to explain how alienating your biggest client might affect stock prices. Not to mention the board members." Richard deflated visibly. He knew I had them cornered. "What do you want?" "3 things. First, Sullivan Manufacturing will modernize its systems, exactly as I outlined in yesterday's presentation. Second, you'll promote Sarah Martinez to Operations Director." "The janitor's daughter?" Diana scoffed. "The Harvard MBA who's been wasting her talent in middle management because she's not family." "Yes, her." "And the third thing?" Richard asked through gritted teeth. "A public apology to every non-family employee you've belittled, passed over, or treated as second-class citizens, starting with yesterday's spectacle." "That's ridiculous. We'd lose all authority." "No, you'd gain respect. Real respect, not fear. Your choice." The room fell silent. James stood up suddenly. "Dad, she's right. I've been wrong. About everything." Diana gasped. "Jimmy." But James wasn't finished. "We treat people badly and call it family tradition. We waste money on outdated systems because that's how we've always done it. Maybe we need this wake-up call." I felt a glimmer of hope for my marriage, but it was quickly extinguished by what happened next. Richard slammed his fist on the desk. "Get out, both of you. You want a public apology? Fine. But after that, I never want to see either of you again." James reached for my hand. For the first time since yesterday, I let him take it. As we walked toward the door, I turned back one last time. "Oh, and Richard, check your email. Your board members are very interested in my presentation from yesterday, especially the part about the millions in potential savings." We left to the sound of Diana's screeching and Richard's cursing. But I knew I'd won. The question was, what had I lost in the process? That evening, James and I sat in our living room, 2 cups of cold coffee between us. The silence was deafening. 5 years, he finally said. 5 years, and I never knew. Would you have treated me differently if you had? He flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You watched your family humiliate me. You stayed quiet when they fired me. Even worse, you laughed. I was wrong. He ran his hands through his hair. God, Emily, I was so wrong. But you lied to me for 5 years. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. There's a difference. Is there? We fell silent again. Outside, rain started falling, matching our mood. Why? He asked. Why keep it secret? I took a deep breath. When we met, I'd just been named CEO. Do you know how many dates I'd had where men either felt threatened by my success or just wanted to use me for connections? With you, I wanted something real. But after we married, I saw how your family operated, how they treated outsiders. Would they have accepted me if they'd known? Or would they have accused me of trapping you for business reasons? James's shoulders slumped. He knew I was right. I've spent years watching you try to please them, I continued. Watching you become less and less the man I fell in love with. The man who used to talk about making changes, modernizing the company, treating employees better. I was a coward, he whispered. Yes, you were. More silence. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it and let out a bitter laugh. Dad's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. Probably trying to find a way around your demands. He won't succeed. No, James agreed. He won't. He stood up and walked to our wedding photo on the mantel. You know what the worst part is? When you revealed who you were today, my first thought wasn't about the lies or the business implications. It was relief. Relief. Relief that my brilliant, capable wife finally showed my family exactly who she is. Relief that someone finally stood up to them. He turned to face me. Relief that maybe, just maybe, things could actually change. I felt tears forming but held them back. Things have to change, James. Not just at the company, but between us. I know. He sat back down, closer this time. I want to be the man you married again. The one with dreams and principles. Not whatever I've become. It won't be easy. Your father. My father will either adapt or retire. The board already called me. They're reviewing your presentation. They want the changes you suggested. I raised an eyebrow. All of them. All of them. Including Sarah's promotion and the public apology. Dad's being strongly encouraged to step down as CEO. He gave a wry smile. They're asking me to take over. And Diana, being transferred to our London office, far away from any real power. I nodded slowly. What about us? James reached for my hand. This time, when our fingers intertwined, it felt different. Equal. I want to try again, he said. No more secrets. No more cowardice. Just us, building something better. Together. We'll need counseling. Yes. And you'll have to prove I can trust you again. I know. And if your father ever... Emily, he interrupted. I choose you. I should have chosen you yesterday, and every day before that. I'm choosing you now, and I'll keep choosing you, even if it means walking away from everything else. I studied his face, the sincerity in his eyes, the determination in his jaw. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt hope. Okay, I said. We try again. 3 months later, Sullivan Manufacturing transformed faster than anyone expected. Under James's leadership, and with sterling technology support, they modernized their systems, promoted deserving employees, and created a more inclusive company culture. Richard retired to Florida, though he still calls James weekly to complain about young people ruining everything. Diana's doing surprisingly well in London, mainly because she's too busy learning the actual business to cause trouble. Sarah Martinez has revolutionized operations, saving the company even more money than my original projections. She and I have lunch regularly, planning future improvements. As for James and me, we're working on it. Marriage counseling helps. So does our new rule, complete honesty no matter what. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes we fight, but we're fighting together now, not against each other. Last week, we had dinner with some of my Sterling Technologies executives. Watching James confidently discuss business strategy with them, I saw again the man I fell in love with, but stronger now, more genuine. You know, he said later that night, I never thanked you. For what? For not giving up. On the company. On me. You could have just pulled Sterling's contracts and walked away. Instead, you forced us to be better. I squeezed his hand. That's what family does. Real family. He smiled. Speaking of family, remember how we've been talking about kids? I sat up straighter. Yes. I think I'm ready now. To be a father. A good one. You sure? Because our child will definitely be an outsider to half their DNA. He laughed, a real, full laugh. Good. Maybe they'll grow up to run both companies and drive Aunt Diana completely crazy. I curled up against him, smiling. Now that sounds like a plan worth working toward. The end.